Hello, hello. Welcome to the Harvest number 9. I'm still exploring this idea of the unified application framework. Moving on a little bit further from last month, where I started to explore uh, more of a generic request response type, which meant that I was able to use the same routing library for the CLI as I am for the HTTP like server, right? Um, so just really quick, I can show you. Um, so this is a CLI, and it's using these same primitives as you would use for the router. Yeah. So if I was to go into the router, actually I probably could. If I go into the router, the idea is that a CLI positional args are very much like paths. If you ever use something like clap, you kind of feel like you're building like subcommands. They're kind of like routes. Um, so so using the same library just reduces a lot of complexity. What's going on there? Just wonder if I can find it. Times. Here we go. Default router. Okay, so as you can see, the default. This is a router. Um, doing all the fancy routing stuff. But there's so much crossover there that I was just able to simplify it a bit by using the same types for the CLI, less dependencies, so clean things up a bit there. Um, and so the question is, so now you got that, you got okay, so you unified the CLI and the router. What's next? And I guess I'm looking more into the what are you serving? Um, what are the crossovers there? So for example, sometimes you want to use an application via a CLI, or sometimes you want to use it via an API. Like just calling a server, getting a raw JSON response. Sometimes you want that rendered as HTML if you're viewing it in a browser. Um, and so it's like, what can the framework do to help all that out? And so yeah, I've kind of been nerding out on content negotiation. I guess it's not really a new idea. It's as old as the web is. So the idea here was, well, as you can see, like if you're a browser, you can say, hey, please give me the content as HTML. Or if you're like an API, you can say, please give it to me as JSON, and the server is supposed to be able to do is to respect that request, kind of giving the client more control, and you can have a lot more variety of what kind of clients can interact with exactly the same server. Um, as you can imagine, that like the more that your server is able to accept, if you're hand rolling all of that, then you're actually introducing a lot of complexity. So it's really it feels like the kind of thing that should be happening at a framework level. I mean, one way of thinking about it could be like, you could say that this is a little bit like what something like React Native does, right? It's like it says, hey, just define your view, and then I'm gonna, depending on the client, or the target, whether it's mobile, web, something like that, I'm gonna work out how to make that view look good on that device. And so as a developer, you're just kind of defining it once. Um, and yeah, so content negotiation itself is not super popular. There's a whole bunch of reasons why, like, um, the caching can get messy. If you're hand rolling things, it's easy to make mistakes, that sort of thing. But I mean, that said, it still is used, and I mean, particularly now, like I just saw on WordPress has announced that they're starting to use the accept header for clankers, right? So I'll just show you what that might look like. This one. Okay, so if you go to like the WordPress, if we just, I'm gonna make that bit bigger. Go to the WordPress developer docs, and you just get the site. As you'll see, you get an absolute mess of HTML. Now you could imagine, if you're feeding that to an LLM, you're just burning tokens for no reason. So what they've done is they've said, okay, well look, why don't you give us let's just clear this. Why don't you give us the accept text/markdown, header, and we'll serve it to you as Markdown. So you can imagine it's a lot nicer for a Clanker to parse. Okay, so that's content negotiation, and I guess as with Beat, what I'm interested in, particularly being built on a game engine, what I'm really interested in is taking this kind of a step further. So we've already talked about beyond HTTP. If you're able to generalize the request response pattern, are you also able to generalize the modalities of how that view works? So let's do a concrete example here. Let's see. I'm just going to go to the. Yeah. Okay. So let's do some concrete examples. Okay. So here's just a really simple, CLI app. Sorry. So you got the content. The content's just like these kind of just routes. A few files, a bit of information in there, and you're just kind of spawning like a server, right? So if I run this, I'm going to get the response in HTML. That's just how I set it up. And then, but let's say, for example, you're in a REPL, or maybe you wanted it as Markdown, right? So this is the same thing, but as Markdown, you can and again, this is the request response pattern is the same. So this is a server that's running. It's the same definition of the routes, but here I can use positional arguments. Like, for example, I can type about, and it's actually going to take me to the about page. That kind of all just works because it's all the same stuff. Positional arguments are just path, parameters, that sort of thing. Okay, so you can sort of do that with a REPL, but that's kind of still kind of serving like static payloads. This is kind of like that response body kind of pattern. But we need to go a little bit further, right? Particularly because this framework's going to need to be able to handle, building TUIs, building native interfaces, building like for example Bevy UI, or building like Clanker workflows. So the content and the tools that the Clanker has access to, and that those are all stateful. They're all persistent UIs. They're persistent applications, and so using this same request pattern, you can start doing really cool things. So not just doing the payloads, you can also do. Let's see, we'll do the TUI, right? So now it's the same thing, but this is actually rendered as an actual application. So you click around in it. There's a real life Ratatouille sort of app. And it's still just using the same routes, the same content as those static things being served. So it's the same router, the same everything, just a different view, a different representation. So it's like content negotiation. Okay. Yeah. So that's pretty much it. That's what I've been playing with so far. Yeah, so kind of just thinking about these things, beyond HTML, beyond HTTP, how far can we push these ideas? I talk a little bit in the blog post about, this terminal.shop. This is like one of the Primogens projects. So for example, I wonder if this would just work. If I go to terminal.shop, so it's like a TUI, but it's served via SSH, right? So this is really weird. It's like a stateful application. It's like a stateful application, but it's kind of like a web app, So the question is like, okay, so how's that going to work if you wanted to, for example, if I actually visit terminal.shop website, it's a different thing. It's like, oh, okay, terminal.shop website says, hey, go to the SSH. But maybe it shouldn't be like that. You know, maybe the website should also have exactly the same UI, or a web equivalent. You know, not everything translates perfectly. Just like in React Native, the the native UI will be different from the web UI, you know, because they're different platforms. You want to be able to specialize, but you also don't want to repeat yourself. You want to sort of just define your routes, define your content once, and let those let the framework do the heavy lifting. So yeah, so that's multi-interface applications where we're at the moment. It's very like super early days, but yeah, no, it's exciting. Looking forward to seeing where this one goes.